Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fundamentalists podcast. Did you miss us? How are you doing?
This feels like a late night version.
I'm trying to do the cadence of Sam Harris. I just want to welcome everybody to the Fundamentalists. My name is Elliott Morgan. I'm here with Peter Rollins. This is the Fundamentalist podcast. Today,
I could give my critique of Sam Harris.
You could give your critique
Today,
of Sam Harris?
That could be what we talk about.
Like his ahistorical arguments about the Middle East conflict? Okay, so let's, is that where you're going?
No, more philosophical than that.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Well, before we dive into that, everybody, we have some house cleaning to do, some catching up.
Oh, yes.
So much, guys, to catch you up on here.
Yeah.
Where do
we obviously did one of these last week, but it feels like a lot has happened.
Exactly.
Since last week when we podcasted.
Last week does feel like a long time ago. Yeah. I remember last week it felt, what would that have been, months ago at this point? So we fell off once again because there were a few good reasons. One, I got married. I'm a married man now. And so sorry, ladies and gentlemen. And sorry, Pete, I'm married.
Yep.
And you traveled across.
And sorry to Grace.
And sorry to Grace. First and foremost.
That's the main apology. Yeah.
She doesn't deserve what's happened to her. And you traveled back to Ireland for a bit. And now, as we are recording this podcast, you guys aren't able to see it, but a lot of the artwork in this apartment is off the walls. There is new luggage, suspiciously new luggage, significant amount of new luggage on the floor next to the camera. And it is filled with God knows what, but whatever it is that belongs to Pete. And apparently...
They look like mercenary bags, we're saying, yeah.
It makes you look cool, for sure. Or like you're like an outdoorsy
because they're all exactly
person.
the same. I got them off Amazon. They were the cheapest bags, but they look pretty cool.
And they're Wrangler.
Yeah, Wrangler.
Very country.
Cool, yeah.
Pete's leaving, everybody. Pete is headed to Belfast, Ireland, and he is leaving me in his home in Los Angeles. And I'm going to mask my sadness about it with burps and sarcasm. Yeah. So get ready for a fun podcast episode.
Oh, I've got a little gift for you. I can do this now. I was going to do it after.
Really? Oh, well, then never mind. I'm pretty excited about this.
Remember me while I'm away, because, I don't know if I'll be away for that long. I'm just going back for a while to see how things go.
Oh, you'll be back.
I'll be back. LA sucks people back. But as I'm away, I want some little Belfast things for you. Do you know what these are?
Let me be very gentle with this. This is for our audio listeners, which is most of our listeners. Vast majority. Pete just handed me a small plate with two what looks like desks on them, each holding a tiny book, and it says H&W Belfast.
Yes.
And it looks like either these are tiny desks with tiny books on them, here, a little ASMR you can hear. And
I thought you were doing your ASMR voice. You've been doing that a wee bit at the beginning as well.
I'm a calming person.
Yeah.
As Jason Segel always tells me. Yeah. I am oddly calm these days. This is a hand painted by Susan and baked in Belfast. So this is pottery, and besides that, I don't know what it is. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, this is Samson and Goliath. And Samson and Goliath are the two cranes that built the Titanic. They were the biggest cranes in the world. I think they're still among the biggest cranes in the world, and they dominate the Belfast skyline because Belfast used to be one of the main shipbuilding industries in the world. And so those are little shipbuilding cranes.
No way!
From Belfast to remind you of me while I'm away. I'll be looking over that because I got an apartment that looks at those two cranes.
And does it kind of look like that because these are very geometric?
They're very geometric, yep. They look exactly like that. Samson is the small one, Goliath is the big one.
It's funny you bring that up, Pete, because, and this is not going to be necessarily an interesting part of this conversation, but I was thinking about cranes today.
Oh. The animals or the machinery?
The machines.
Yeah.
Because I saw a video of a crane lifting a boat out of the water. It's like the biggest crane that lifts whole boats. Just lifts them right out of the water. Big boats.
Those could do that. Yeah.
I bet they could. Yeah, if they're building the Titanic. And it's funny, because I was like, cranes,
Because they're
man.
bigger in real life.
Yeah, I was like, no one gives credit to cranes. Cranes are an engineering marvel.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. And also big business. You can make a lot of money in the crane industry. I don't know if people know that or not. So we're filled with tips already.
Wow.
Thank you, Pete. I will put this in my office, and I will stare at it, and I will long for as we continue this podcast remotely. Is that the plan?
Yes, that is the plan. That
Okay.
very much is the plan.
I want to make sure that this is not a goodbye to fundamentalists, even though you can imagine as consistent as we were when we lived 20 minutes away, it'll be even more consistent when we're a continent away. But it'll all be great, and it's all going to work out. Pete, how do you feel, and how do I feel? Answer both of those questions, please.
Well, I feel kind of a mixed feelings. This has been home for, how long? Like when I moved to LA, I lived with Connor Habib, a good friend, for a couple of years. And then after that, am I getting the time scale right? I moved from Connor and we lived together. And then I moved from us living together for 2 years. Did we live together for 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
In North Hollywood, and then to here in downtown LA. And
This has
been
been 2 years?
And 3 years. I
3
lived
years.
3 years.
Okay.
So, and this is, and I was in Torrance before that. So I drove from the East Coast to Torrance on the West Coast, and then from Torrance to West Hollywood to North Hollywood to downtown LA. And I have loved living here, and I have loved living with you, and I'm going to miss you desperately.
Me too, man. I will miss you so much, and I guess I'll have to do what I do with friends that I have that don't live nearby, which is talk to you on the phone sometimes.
Oh God, I hate that stuff. Yeah, that's true. Or you could just repress the friendship, just stuff it down, pretend it doesn't exist.
I'll get away with that for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, even like I was walking around the other day, and the other day, it was yesterday, and Grace is like, well, you sad about Pete moving? You sad about, because I was just sort of like moping around or whatever and playing my video game. I got a video game. That's something else we can talk about on this. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm a gamer now.
Are you a gamer now?
Yeah, it's not to brag, but I'm pretty into it. It's called Nintendo. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not upset. I'm not sad that Pete's leaving yet. Like, it'll happen later. And then I was like, that sounds like something that somebody who's sad says. That sounds like I'm making that's. And then I was like, now I am sad. If she hadn't brought that, maybe I would have preferred just to not think about it. But it was all great.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy for it. It makes total sense, and I understand why you're doing it. I hope that it is not permanently, but I also respect you regardless, and so that's my way out of that.
Yeah. Very good. So yeah, no, thank you. And I've lived here for 3 years, and I realized it was coming up, the lease, and I either had to sign for another year, and I was like, I don't want to sign for another year, or take some time out, go back home. I've got some plans. I'm finishing a book. I want to do that in Belfast.
Let's talk about the book.
Oh yeah.
I started writing a book today.
Oh, there you go. I knew you were writing a book a while back.
Well, I'm still working on that one. That one's the big one that I actually care about.
Yeah.
But let me hear about your book, and then let's compare it to mine. All right? I don't want to derail the conversation, because my book is going to be very dumb.
That you literally started writing today?
And well, today, or I think today. Today.
Yeah. Okay.
And but let's hear about yours, because you've been working on this for a while, and your book will actually probably be helpful and substantial.
Okay. Well, I am excited about this, because I took like the guts of 10 years away from writing, and I started writing a book a while back, maybe a couple of years ago, and then I just didn't feel it was right, and so I stopped. And in the last 6 months, I've kind of got back to it, and I'm feeling confident about it. And the working title is The Unknowing Absolute, or The Unknowing God. I'm kind of playing around with the subtitle on how nothing can save us, which I got from this guy, a friend, Peter Dixon, who was at an event I ran, and he did a poem, and there was that line, nothing can save us, and I quite liked it, because there's a double meaning there, like nothing can save us, or
nothing
can save us, right? And so I've been working on this, and what we might talk about today, we don't have to, because we don't have really an agenda. So let's see
we're
where
really
we go.
flying by this. If you can't tell from the high energy of this podcast so far, that I definitely set the tone for, which I can shake myself out of. But yes, we don't have a plan for this episode. But
But-
yes,
but
okay,
if we do, what I've been working on, like the spine of the book, is my critique of classical theism, modern atheism, and mysticism, and the offering of an alternative to those, both theoretically and institutionally.
okay.
So that's kind of the kind of core thing that I'm doing with the book.
I'll be very interested on your critiques on mysticism.
Yeah.
I have a good idea about your critiques on... I mean, I have an idea about the critique on mysticism, too, because you're the oceanic kind of oneness of everything, and you don't want to fall into that, and then is it sort of escapism, that kind of...
Well, yeah, although what I'm trying to do with this book is get to the real core of the critique, so not like even just kind of, surface stuff, but
Really
like get down to it. So the chapter that I'm writing at the moment, it starts with... It kind of looks at basically two very common understandings of the origin of religion, and then a third position. So the first position is the standard humanist position, which is, and I use actually there was a book you talked about. I asked you to, was it Chariot
Chariots
of
of Fire
Gods?
or something like that, or Chariots of the Gods.
Yes, kind of, which is all about kind of religion originating from an encounter with alien technology that completely overwhelms us.
Well, okay.
Okay.
I mean, my understanding is that it's not alien technology. Alien technology is just another interpretation,
Yeah.
a modern interpretation. So it wouldn't be like... I don't think the argument is that they're coming in contact with alien technology, and that's what started religions. But
Well,
it
in
is
that
the
book, 'cause
same
I-
other. It's the same unknowable thing.
Okay, because from talking to you, I speed read it, but I kind of read
Was
it.
that
and,
Jacques Vallée? Is that who
Yeah.
did that?
No, it wasn't.
Wonders in the Sky? Is that where you're thinking?
No, Chariots of the Gods, which is an old one from like the 60s.
Oh, okay.
And his argument, well, I mean, I
If
use that
that
as
was his
playfully.
argument. Okay, great.
Yeah, but playfully, I mean, basically, this one of the standard kind of humanist arguments is whether, I mean, the least plausible is alien technology, but also
Wow.
natural phenomenon or existential phenomenon that
Way more likely.
overwhelms us.
Way more likely.
Yeah, so either storms and things, crop failures and wars that we can't understand leads us to this sense of awe and a desire for the transcendent, or guilt, meaninglessness, facing death, anything like that. So the idea is that religion arises from kind of our human encounter with the natural world or our own subjective experience that is kind of overwhelming.
Okay, but you're still saying natural world, not supernatural world.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so that's the humanist thing, because there's no supernatural. So it's all natural. Whether
Materialistic, something happens,
Yeah.
you're responding,
Yeah.
you're concocting a myth or dogma around it.
So, and I get the cargo cults. And we talked about this in a podcast before, but in the
Last
Malaysian
week.
islands, there was after the Second World War, all of these kind of weird religious groups arose, and one of the most famous is this worship of the Messiah, John Frum, who is who's like seen as a World War II kind of American veteran who's going to come back to the islanders and vanquish the foreigners and bring back excess. And one of the reasons for the cargo cults is because during the Second World War, these islanders encountered highly technologically advanced civilizations that were dropping cargo, as you know, on their islands, and this got integrated into their religion. So it kind of like,
Which is perfectly logical thing to do if you're getting literal pallets of food
Yeah.
and supplies and things that you've never seen before.
you've never
that are-
seen before. Like, you're literally seeing vehicles, tanks, and jeeps, and canned foods, and canned soda drinks, and all, and you've never seen anything like that
Wild.
before. And so it's kind of like, so one interpretation of religion is that we encounter something that is, that we cannot conceptualize, and that births religion. And then the standard theological response to that, I'm arguing, is not to deny that, but to redouble it. To say that if there is such a thing as true religion, it arises from an encounter with something that is so other that it cannot be reduced to anything natural.
There you go.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Big fan. Yes. Yes, that's a good kind of sophisticated theological response.
And you're going to go, and you're going to,
Yeah. But at first I want to give that a good shot. I want to give that a run for its money.
Sure.
Right. And one of the best advocates of that is a guy called Jean-Luc Marion. And he argues that basically using Kant, we're going to get into philosophy here. Does that sound
God
good?
dang it.
Immanuel
Just because
Kant.
you're leaving, fine.
Yes,
You can
okay, will you allow me some
spin
philosophy?
your yarn,
Yeah.
dude.
Okay, well, this is fascinating to me.
No, I'm, I mean, I'm taking a
I
class in depth psychology and the
Yeah.
sacred, and so I'm very interested in these religious studies things, even though my knowledge of them is cursory, to say the least. So,
Correct. Well, so Immanuel Kant famously in his Critique of Pure Reason, he argued that for us to make sense of anything, things have to filter through what he called these transcendental categories. And they are quantity, quality, relation, and modality.
time, is time not one?
Quantity.
Quantity would probably be time, right?
Yeah, so quantity basically means that you either say all cats have tails, some cats have tails, my cat has a tail. So you either universal, all, particular, which is a few, or singular, right? When we judge something arises in one of those ways. We're talking about everything or singular or plural. Quality is the quality that something has. So you say, Socrates was happy. That's a quality. Or Socrates was not happy. Or Socrates was unhappy. And that's...
But the categories are basically the filters through which every
Yes.
human being receives information and then categorizes it in their brain
Yes.
in order to make sense of it and go through life.
Exactly. So Kant has
As
these
opposed to the
four.
ding in psych.
Oh, very good.
I don't know. Is that, dude? One of the things is I just read and I don't know how to pronounce any of the words. But you know what I'm talking
Oh yeah,
about?
the in itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're talking
the
about-
thing in itself,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's exactly. Yeah. So Kant has this notion that we can't know the in itself, like reality as it is.
Because we got these hater
Yeah.
blockers on.
Exactly. So we got these judgments. But we can understand as long as it filters through quantity, quality, relation, or modality, or all four of those, we can understand something. And then, so what someone like Marion argues is that religion arises from an experience of something that utterly saturates all four of those, that we cannot talk about it in any of those terms.
Wait, religion does this?
Yeah, if there's such a thing, I mean, Marion's very careful to say, well, as a philosopher, he's like, if there is true religion, if there is a genuine, non-superstitious religion, then it arises from an encounter not with a natural phenomenon, but something that saturates natural phenomenon.
If it was a natural phenomenon, it wouldn't create that kind of thing because
Yeah.
it wouldn't just not be. It would be natural phenomenon.
Yeah. So, for example, if it was UFOs, that's the craziest idea. But let's imagine that.
Oh, wait till you hear about my book idea.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah. But if for argument's sake, there was some highly advanced civilization came to Earth thousands of years ago,
Okay, well,
you would still
spoilers.
that there was.
No, I'm talking about my book, man.
All right. Okay. Well, you'd be able to you'd see stuff that quantity. You'd either see one UFO or a few UFOs or all UFOs, right? You'd see qualities. The UFO would be fast, or it would be slow,
Right.
or it would be round, or it would be rectangular. In other words, even if it was a very impressive phenomenon, it would still fit into the categories of judgment. Right, the UFO to a certain extent would fit into one or more of these categories, and the theological response is the word God signifies an encounter with something that does not fit within any of those categories.
Nice. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and so therefore, the fragmentation of language is basically like a religious language testifies to something that it cannot speak. There is something that is beyond our ability to conceptualize, and that's why religious language is full of paradoxes and contradictions and mythologies and all of that.
But there's a there. It's because there's a there.
There's a there. Yeah, which is what Marion would
Jesus.
call otherwise than being. Oh, Jesus, yeah. Something that utterly destabilizes us.
And that's not a knock at Jesus, by the way. That
Yeah.
was actually more of a compliment.
Yeah, well, Marion's a big Jesus guy.
Really?
He's Catholic, yeah.
Okay, so this is incorporated in your book, but was that you stating the argument you're going against, or you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but setting the argument kind of, and then what I'd kind of ultimately going to
How do you dismantle or under not challenge a belief such as that with only philosophy or only reason when you're talking about something that's inherently irrational and inherently subjective and inherently like very affective, like there's something that like people experience things. How do you get into that web with only one sword to slice through it?
Yeah. Well,
And I say sword because I'm back into video games.
Oh yeah, nice. So what are you playing?
Zelda.
Is that right? Is that an old school one, or have they got an updated version?
That's updated as in like 6 years ago.
Is that right?
I'm pretty up to date on the game. But anyway,
in my day, I was really good at Worms. I was the best at Worms. I was living in a house with 7 people, and beside us lived a house with about 5 people, and we had regular competitions at Worms, and I was the best.
First of
that's
all,
how I remember it. They would probably disagree.
I've never heard of Worms.
Have you not?
No, but the fact
so
that I
good.
haven't heard of Worms made that statement way more entertaining. And this is one of the reasons I'm going to miss you, because every now and then I forget. We were hanging out last time. We were hanging out was last week, and we're getting caught up. And you said some word that I absolutely have never heard before in my life, and it's like an Irish thing. It's like a slang Irish thing.
Oh, that's right. You said.
And I was trying to remember it because I was trying to tell Grace about it, and I was like, I'll ask Pete, but I don't think he'll be able to remember it anyway. Anyway.
Yeah.
So how do you approach these deep arguments, but also hold that thought? Let's have an intermission. Let's all take a breather because I'm going to top off my drink because I'm enjoying this very much, by the way. I hope everyone's enjoying this. Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
If you're not enjoying it, you're wrong.
Hey, So this guy I'm talking about, Jean-Luc Marion, he's a phenomenologist. And phenomenologists try to take seriously human subjective experience. So they utterly, and like even with existentialism does the same. So existentialism, phenomenology, they really take absolutely seriously people's yes, and their lived experience, their experience of the world, their experience of objects, their experience of themselves as a subject, and then they try to offer a way of thinking that allows us to kind of do justice to that experience.
Yes, because everything ultimately has some kind of phenomenological element to it, right? We're all part of the thing that we're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, this
the
is
experimenter is never totally separate from the experiment.
That's it. And that is, I mean, this is very simplistic and not completely true, but I'll start by saying it is like one of the distinctions between analytic philosophy and continental philosophy is analytic philosophy tends towards objective problem solving. So like mathematics, it tends to try to divorce the subject from what they're studying. So anybody who studies mathematics can do it, right? It's not about how you're feeling, whether you're a good person or a bad person, depressed or happy or anything like that, right? You as a subject are kind of as removed as possible. The continental philosophy has always been interested in trying to think what the subject is, in their happiness and sadness, in their commitment to a cause or lack of commitment, in their goodness or badness. So continental philosophy.
The good stuff.
The good stuff.
Meaty.
I mean, that's it. That's why, I mean, I started in analytic philosophy, got very bored because I was primarily interested in what does it mean to be human. And continental philosophy attempts to think what it is to be human within the human experience, particularly phenomenology. So someone like Jean-Luc Marion, he takes absolutely seriously religious experience, but tries to give a language that does justice to it.
Okay.
Put it like that.
Okay.
Put it like that.
So phenomenology, okay.
Yeah.
In your book. okay.
Yeah.
Not full picture, obviously.
Yes.
Can't go all phenomenology. That's how you
Can't
get
go off
psychopaths.
phenomenology. Yes. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
literally verbatim a response I put in my class responses for my homework today.
Is that right?
Part of the response was like, you can't get too into this because that's how you get crazy people. And if you don't have phenomenology at all, then you get like a boring person. And
Yeah.
so that's,
Oh, very good. So you've done some stuff in phenomenology.
Well, I mean, it's all this is phenomenology is the depth psychological thing is like all phenomenological, and archetypal psychology is all phenomenological, and it's almost, I would argue, sometimes too phenomenological, which is why I'm interested in hearing what your critique is, because I love the phenomenological stuff, and it is a $5 word, but really it basically just means like, hey, this is what you're experiencing. And that has value because you're experiencing it, because there's nothing that exists in the world that someone has not experienced. Everyone experiences everything.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And so phenomenology, and Husserl's really the key phenomenologist, is how do we kind of take absolute... Well, Heidegger was he comes after Husserl, but like Heidegger's whole project in being and time was to try to think what it is to be. Like, so for example, human beings experience fast and slow, but that fast and slow don't exist in the world. That there's velocity, but there's not fast and slow.
That's experience.
Yeah. There's not heavy and light. There's mass, but there's not heavy and light. So heavy and light is phenomenological. Mass is physics.
But I'm still going back to how you tackle issues of phenomenology from a point of, like, how are you going to do this?
Okay.
Like, but I also don't want you to spoil the book. But do you understand what I'm at? Like, am I being, maybe I'm not being articulate enough, but basically, you're going to write a book that kind of addresses varying and polar opposite views of religion and gives a third way.
Yeah.
Right? So what is the third way that incorporates the lived, felt experience of the individual?
Yeah. Well, okay, and I'll put it this way, and we're going to bounce around a lot here, right?
Let's pinball it, dude.
Yeah. I mean, standard theism says God exists, and standard atheism says God does not exist, right? That's the standard binary thing. Theists say God exists, atheists say God does not exist.
Tale as old as time.
Yes. I'm interested in the notion that my critique of modern atheism is that actually the signifier God is the signifier of non-existence as such. God is the non-existent thing. That's what religion at its best does, is it opens up a space for something that is otherwise than being. And that's phenomenological. That's a phenomenological critique of atheism.
It's very interesting. I mean, in the little I've read of civilization and its discontents, and I am so sorry, for being, if it comes off like I'm trying to counterpoint you, because I'm really not, but it reminded me of Freud's understanding of religion and the idea of God as an illusion, but illusion not necessarily being something that is not true, because if it's not true, that's a delusion, and an illusion is something that you definitely absolutely can't prove. You get something out of, and then he sort of took the more, neurotic, or religion is neurosis kind of deal of it being a product of the Oedipal complex and yada, yada, yada. But you're not quite doing that, it sounds like. You're doing like that a little, but you're also going like, no, the fact that it's unknown means that it's unknown, and therefore you're not making a metaphysical claim about.
Yeah, although and you bring up something very interesting about Freud there, right? So for the sake of people listening, you have Freud, this is a very phenomenological move. He says that a delusion is something that's wrong, that's incorrect. But an illusion, as you say, is you're invested in it, but it could be true. So a little girl could fantasize about being a princess, and then it turns out through a DNA test
her name is Meghan Markle.
And she actually is a princess. She's still having an illusion. So she's still fantasizing about being a princess. It just so happens that she's correct.
Yeah.
But that is the interesting move, and that is one of the differences between again, analytic and continental philosophy. When you look at analytic philosophers of religion, like people like there's Richard Swinburne and there's others, Alvin Plantinga, they're arguing for or against for the existence of God. In continental philosophy, it's like that's kind of bracketed. Like again, like for Freud and particularly Lacan, the little girl's fantasy about being a princess is really the interesting thing. Whether or not she is a princess is beside the point. So in other words, someone's belief in God and where that comes from and what that says and what that experience is what's important. Whether or not they happen to be correct, that's by the by. That's not that important. That's a phenomenological way of looking at things. So a phenomenologist does not ask the question, does God exist? In any direct way. They ask, what does it mean to say that God exists? What does it mean to believe?
You stay within the realm of human experience.
Yes. And then if you someone like Marion, who's very clever and finds a way to link the two, but that's...
really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, folks, he's not just making this up. I don't know if he does it on purpose or if it's accidental, but every time I walk in, he's got a book on the counter that has the name of the author he's inevitably going to mention 5 seconds later.
Yeah, that's right.
So my guess is that you don't really read that much. You just read a little bit from one person, and then you kind of throw out that person.
That's
and then
the secret.
you're like, I'm writing this book about this guy. I'm like, really? Because a few weeks ago it was Zizek, and before that it was Lacan, and before that it was somebody else, and I'm sure Tom McGowan somewhere got snuck in there.
Oh,
so,
yeah, he's very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't want to keep going down this rabbit hole unless you want to.
I'm loving it. Yeah, let's keep. Yeah, I think we're bouncing around. We're getting somewhere.
Okay.
So when I said like the kind of humanist argument is religion arises not wholly, but religion partly arises from humans' experience of the unknown, that things that they don't understand, things that they can't understand, and then this is called the God of the gaps. That the more we understand, potentially the less religious people will get. The theological response to that is that religion, if true religion exists, it arises not from something that's simply unknown, like we don't understand at present, but something that we could never understand, something that fundamentally saturates us, something that fundamentally short circuits our conceptual categories.
And I would add, I mean, it's a saturation not only of everything, but it feels incredibly intimate and incredibly like this all saturating mystery is also aware or also involved in you.
Yeah.
That's at least my understanding of a truly religious experience.
Yes.
From a phenomenological and somewhat academic standpoint.
Yeah. And one of the clever things Marion does, which he starts by offering certain experiences of saturation that are completely normal, that all of us experience.
Right. That you don't create religions out of.
Yes, exactly. And that's very clever. Because,
like a bear.
Yeah. So
like if I saw a bear, I'd be scared.
You completely kind of saturate.
But I wouldn't go make like a cult out of it.
Yeah. So he gives three examples of this. He says events, the flesh, and the idol. Or the events, the idol, and flesh. And so an event is like the sinking of the Titanic. So he says the sinking of the Titanic, if you're involved, if you're subjectively part of it, or you're even part of communities that are interested in it, there's no end of what you can learn. Historically, sociologically, you can learn so much about shipbuilding, mechanical engineering. Like you can't. So it saturates you, as in you can't talk about the universal because you can't grasp it all. It's not just a singular event. It's not a series of events. It's like it completely blows up.
Transcendental.
Quantity.
There's something about it.
Yeah.
It's a little too much.
It's too much. There's a too muchness. And even stuff that you know about the Titanic, you can always look at it from a different angle. There'll be no end to documentaries. There'll be no end to books that are about it because it saturates quantity.
Yeah. Do you know my favorite fact about the Titanic?
No.
Where it was made by these little cranes, Pete.
That's it.
Thank you. All right,
it was the English that drove it, not the Irish. So.
Yeah. They just built it.
Yeah, they just built it. It wasn't supposed to be driven into icebergs. Anyway, then the idol, which is paintings, where he says when you look at a painting, like the ones behind us, you look at a painting, it's a painting that you're subjectively invested in, you can't really talk about what qualities it has or what it doesn't have. It kind of like, it reads you. You can't take it all in, and you go back to it again and again. So again, art saturates you. And then finally, flesh. He says, like, your flesh, the experiences of suffering and pleasure that your flesh gives you, is a type of relation that's different from cause and effect and from other types of relations. So he outlines all of these kind of natural
Sounds like an
things.
interesting guy.
Oh, yeah, he's very interesting. I was very into him when I was doing my PhD, but that's 20 years ago now. But then he does the clever twist, and he says, religion, if true religion exists, arises from a saturation of all of these elements. It's kind of when someone feels that they're undone by a gaze, by this feeling that they are being, in one sense, it's not that the world is an object, they're an object to something else.
Nice, yeah, well put, yeah.
They're undone by something that they cannot grasp or know or understand in any way. That's where religion arises from. And he says that's a legitimate thing. That's a legitimate experience.
This guy's not a Jungian.
He's not. Well, no, he's not.
Okay.
But he's not. But
Falling
Jung would.
similar.
No, but Jung would fit within that, I think.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like because if the standard humanist thing is the fragmentation of religious language arises from a confrontation with not knowing why we die, not knowing why the universe is the way it is, not knowing why we're here, then this theological response is no. The fragmentation of religious language is because we cannot grasp the hyperabundance, the superabundance of the essence that is ungraspable. But this is where then I think you can critique both.
Okay, because I have a
Okay, go for it. Well, talk to me.
Well, my only critique would be you could also make a god out of ungraspability, or a god out of mystery, or a god out of the unknown. So,
which is kind of what Marion's saying. He wrote a book called, what was it called? Certain Uncertainties, something like that. I can't remember the title.
Certain Uncertainties?
Yeah.
My last post that I was just referencing that I was making a reply on was called Certainly Circular Certainty.
Certain Uncertainty.
Certainly Circular Certainty.
Okay, oh wow.
I was being critical of Jung.
Of Hume?
Jung?
Jung, were you? Oh,
yeah.
Well, there's hope for you, yeah.
Well, haha. No, it was I have to throw in a critique every now and then because that's how you get A's. But yeah, okay, so keep going, yes.
Oh, yeah. So his.
I'm enjoying this, by the way. I don't know. This is meandering all over the place, but it's pinball, and here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so his book, Certain Uncertainties, is that, and this is not that different from Hegel in some respects, is that we actually can be certain of some things, and we can be certain of our uncertainty. Like there is, his argument is that there is a kind of dimension of novelty or unknowing, and that we can know that we do not know. And so that's a type of certainty. That's a type of certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked him more when he was named Descartes. Am I right, everybody? This is an insufferable episode on my part. Pete's doing great. I am annoying, and I hear myself, and I'm sorry. But that is exactly what Descartes said, though, right?
Oh, yeah. It was, funnily enough, yes. Yeah, so Descartes, his whole argument is he's looking for the...
I doubt, therefore I am. The only thing I can't doubt is that I doubt.
Yes, I cannot think that I'm not thinking. If I think I'm not thinking, I'm thinking I'm not thinking. Therefore I think, and if I think, I am. Right? Even if there is an all-powerful demon in the universe.
It's a nice anchor to reality.
Reality, yeah. And then, you know what Descartes did after that? Well, you will, because you've been studying him. But is that Descartes then has a weird argument for the existence. So all that Descartes gets is, I think, therefore I am, right? And he goes like, shit, how do I then get into believing in science and physics and biology and chemistry? How can I have confidence that those tell us something true about the world? And so he creates an argument for the existence of God. And then he says, and if God exists, God would not deceive us. Therefore, we can trust our senses.
Look,
yeah,
I like when people take the long way to the bathroom.
Yeah. That's a good way of saying it, yeah. And his argument, which connects with what you're saying, is that God is the name of something that we cannot ever grasp. And so we can we have this notion in our minds of something that we cannot know, and and then he kind of says basically that only God could put that idea in our heads, because we like a cat can't think of quantum mechanics, a human being couldn't think of God. Like, we can only think what our capacity is capable
There's
of.
got to be something above us going, you don't get it.
Yeah, and planting that in our mind.
Right.
That was a terrible way of describing it. He has a few different versions, but that's basically the idea. Is
You know, you affirm belief in UFOs without even realizing it, Pete. This is crazy.
I want to hear about your book in a second, actually. We'll get to the end of this and we'll get into the UFO thing.
I don't really have much of a critique on what you're talking about. I mean, the only thing I would say is, and I'm sure you've thought about this because you do a fair amount of thinking.
I do a little bit.
The unknowable, right? We can't know it. We can't know it. It's out there. We can't know it. We just can't know it. So you have to get comfortable in the ambiguity. If you're comfortable in the contradiction, etc. My only thought / experience / opinion is that you can get to know the edges, and you can see the little bits of it, and you can see that there's something going on, but you cannot. There's a difference, I think, between absolute ignorance and absolute isolation from whatever the other is, and then these little bleed over, crossover things that happen. And that's my understanding as it currently stands as a novice when it comes to the developments of religion and people who are highly spiritual and people who have highly weird experiences, high strangeness experiences.
So can I give you a thought of where I think you stand and
Please.
see if you resonate with this? So it sounds like, and this is a very respectable position, this is quite Kantian. So Immanuel Kant, he argued that there is a reality in itself. You talked about it earlier. There's an in itself. Yes, thank you. We'll say it again.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That is kind of, we cannot grasp because our minds filter everything. However, he did not, and this is the critique. This is why people like oh God, who is that person that Jordan Peterson reads? I read his book once on Kant. Stephen somebody.
Pinker?
No, it wasn't Steven Pinker. It was, but he wrote this very bad book on Kant. But Kant did, he thought he had this realm called the sublime. And the sublime was, he said, that say when you encounter a massive storm that you're on a ship or something like that, and you experience this storm, the experience of the sublime is whenever you, in a way, briefly glimpse that there is something so vastly greater than you and the storm,
right,
that you cannot grasp. And he said this is the sublime moment. So the sublime is not where you grasp the in itself, the essence of the reality. The sublime is the moment when the natural world so overwhelms you that you briefly have this sense that there is something utterly other. And that's the sublime.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. And then he says, one way to describe it is, if you say to somebody, no words can describe how much I love you, right? If I say this to you, right? No words can describe how much I love you. The weird thing is, but the weird thing is the failure to say what love is actually communicates what love is. So the failure is a success. In fact, the idea of saying no words could ever describe it is much more effective at conjuring up what love is, the unconditionality of love, than trying to explain it. Right? So for Kant, in a sense, there's a failure in language and a failure in experience, but the failure actually articulates what it feels to articulate. Just like, as I say, I cannot express my love for you, weirdly expresses the love in its failure to do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, that reminds me, Pete, of years ago. I was getting, Grace and I were getting married, and I was doing my vows. And I had to read them, and I could not finish what I'd written, because I was choked up so much, and so I had to stop, and I folded it up, and I said, quote, "You get the idea," and it worked like a charm. But
you
I
go,
felt
that's
bad
okay.
because I was like, does she not know that I didn't say the last part where I love her? But it was a very sweet thing, and it was very like I didn't feel bad about not finishing it. Maybe a little embarrassed about the emotional display. But then it's I understand the idea of what you're saying.
That's exactly it. Like what's more powerful than you reading that is you basically going, I cannot express this. Like
couldn't get it
your
out.
failure to express your love is what expressed your love, right? So Grace
Then
will
I'm
have
batting
experienced.
I'm batting.
What's it?
Batting 1,000 right now, though.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. I mean, it's. I think everyone understands that when they hear it. It's like, oh yeah, your very failure, the very moment that you failed to express yourself, the very moment that you couldn't either through emotion and you couldn't read it, was the very moment that you expressed what you could not express. Right.
The
Kantian
message
sublime.
came across.
Yes, that's the Kantian sublime.
Apophatic.
Yes, that's
without
the apophatic.
light.
Yeah, that's the apophatic. That's the Kantian sublime. Now, here's my critique.
Hit me.
Is that, and this is, so I use an example from Lacan. Lacan talked about there's a Greek myth by 300 BC. It was two of the greatest painters in the world. One was called Zook. Let's call him Zook. That's not right. Zucchus or something. And the other one was called Parhethus.
Sure.
Let's call them 1 and 2 because I can't remember their names.
1
right?
and 2. Got it.
Zucchus, I think it was Zucchus. They were both the best painters of their day, and they arrogantly want to kind of decide who is the best painter. And so they have this competition, who can create the most realistic painting. And on the day when they have to both display their paintings, they go up to the front, and the first person to display the painting is this guy, Zucchus, I think, something like that. And he has painted grapes. And these grapes are so realistic that the birds of the air come down and try to eat them, right? So he's feeling pretty good about himself, like fool the animals. And then he looks at his friend and he says, okay, there's a curtain. He says, right, pull back the curtain. I want to see your painting. And of course, the painter says, the curtain is the painting. And he won. Because what the appearance was, he had these curtains, and Zucchus looked at it and said, pull back the curtain. Mm-hmm. He was fooled.
That's the painting.
That's the painting. They realized there is nothing behind the curtain. The curtain is the painting. So Lacan uses this to talk about how appearance can generate the illusion that there is something real behind it.
Right.
When the real is in appearance itself. And that is for me, the failure of religious language to describe the superabundant essence of the divine is what creates the illusion of that superabundance. The real...
wrong.
Wrong.
No. Wrong.
Yes, but you know what? There is a signifier we can use called God, which is in the failure itself.
Love it.
So the
Wrong.
failure of language...
No. What's that Trump gif? Wrong.
I thought you would resist this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad I could
But you know
follow
what?
it enough to resist it.
But when you read the book, you're going to be convinced.
I highly doubt it, but I will definitely read it. I love all the interpretations of all this, because what we're talking about is the most extreme situations in people's lives, the most intimate situations, the most awe-inspiring, existentially dreadful, ontologically shocking moments, and I love all of the interpretations.
I know. And here, this will be the difference between Jung and Freud, I would say. Like, I would put Jung on the side of believing that the fragmented nature of religious language testifies to a reality that we no longer have access to, but that is substantial. Whereas Freud, and let's see, and then you can come back on this, Freud, but basically Lacan is a radical Freudian. Like Lacan, all Lacan is basically taking Freud to an extreme. So the Lacanian Freudian idea is that the fragmentation of religious language does not testify to a type of truth. It is the truth of a fragmentation within reality itself. Mm-hmm. Reality is ontologically a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
I mean, Pete, I got your general. You're nothing if not on brand. But yeah, no, I'm very. I mean, I would say Jung would not say that we've lost access to it. I mean, he very much would say we still have access.
But would he not say, but that the archetypes kind of like testify to something even deeper that we do not
archetypes
know?
would be sort of a priori things. My understanding is that Jung's position is that we have an a priori. The psyche itself has a religious disposition, not necessarily religious, but a spiritual thing, a desire for transcendence. It's hardwired into us, which in many ways, in my mind, is kicking the ball down the field a little bit and being like, oh, we'll deal with it later. It's not something I agree with the idea that every person's psyche has a desire for transcendence in some way. Yeah. But I don't think that means whatever that is on the other side may not exist. It's definitely unknowable, but the shape that it takes in every individual's life may not look anything like religion or spirituality. It may come out in an admiration of a political figure or allegiance to a sports team or something like that.
Yeah.
And it follows the Kantian kind of like, from Jung's perspective. Also, him trying to be a scientist all the time is very cute because he wasn't a scientist, but he tried to have a scientific viewpoint on things. So he was always going phenomenologically, this is what people are experiencing, and his whole idea was that there is a sort of God form that is unknowable, and the contents of that, there's God contents then, that everyone has sort of God contents in some way. And some people's God contents might be like unknowing or contradiction or dissatisfaction or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, okay.
And
I'll
other
have to come
people.
Back to that. I'll have to come back to that because what I want to say
I had a feeling you might not like that.
I might want to come back on that. But yeah, like, so my reading of Jung is that broadly speaking, see what you think, because you're studying this more than me, is that Jung kind of has a notion of like, so once language comes into existence, language cannot access the thing. So, and this is a Hegelian point. So this is I think, is that the birth of the word is the death of the world. As soon as we name something, we've got a distance from it. Like it's because as soon as we're in linguistics, as soon as we're in naming, there is a certain kind of like loss.
Yes,
so that's
absolutely.
Right. But then what I get in Jung is that the archetypes and the kind of like the unconscious or subconscious for Jung is a type of
collective unconscious, not subconscious.
Oh yeah,
subconscious isn't it?
Yeah, although well,
there's pre-conscious and there's not. Subconscious is like a
because Jungians talk about subconscious. Did Jung talk about? Yeah, you never hear Freudians talk about subconscious, but I
never hear Jungians talk about subconscious.
Yeah, well, I
hear materialist psychologists like in academia talk about the subconscious.
Yeah, but psychologists, they have no clue. Yeah, so yeah, but it's interesting that because
shots fired.
Shots fired. I'm interested, and you should come back to me on that because I hear Jungians talk about the subconscious, but I was interested.
I'm trying to look at me. I'm in the frame.
You're in the frame, okay.
I'm just embarrassed.
Oh, you are in the frame, yeah. Just that. So it'd be interesting whether Jung, because Jung is a depth psychologist, and depth psychology and subconscious are connected. So
yeah, I mean, my understanding, I can understand pre-conscious. Before we talked about the pre-conscious.
Pre-conscious, yes, pre-conscious.
I associate subconscious. Oh God, is anybody listening? There's no way. My understanding is that the subconscious and the pre-conscious are basically the same thing. When people say subconscious, I think pre-conscious.
Okay, well, that I don't have a
Maybe
problem
I'm wrong
with that, but. So, and Freud is responsible for this party because one of Freud's earliest descriptions of the unconscious was an iceberg. And you have a little bit of the iceberg that's above the water, and then you have loads of the iceberg that's beneath the water. Right?
Freud's was?
Freud's one of his early...
Yeah, Jung really stole that and ran with it, didn't he?
Yes, well, Freud rejected it ultimately. That's it, because subconscious means a submarine, submerged, like beneath.
But still conscious.
Whereas Freud... eventually, and Lacan really brings it on, is that the unconscious is not underneath the water. The unconscious is in consciousness. It's right on the
laced
surface.
In, it's all in. Yeah.
So,
I love all of it.
Yeah.
Is that okay if I just like all of it?
You're allowed to like all of it. I'll still try and win you over. I'm going to try and win you over.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
I like to think that I switch every day from being a Jungian, archetypal Hillmanian guy, transpersonal, psychoanalytic, Lacanian, materialist, board guy.
You're an intellectual slut. Is that right? You sleep with any intellectual.
I'm a
figure.
hermeneutic whore.
Yes, a hermeneutic whore. That's what you are. That's it. Collage philosophy.
Yeah,
And,
I like it. I like all of it. I like hear what people think, and I don't feel a lot of pressure to wave a flag any direction. Even though here's how it happened. Here's how the story began to Pete with my book.
Okay. Yes. Let's talk about this.
All right.
Oh.
Dude. Okay. This goes back to my wedding a little bit. Let me make sure we're okay on time. Or battery, rather. Okay. If you're still listening, God bless you. Unless is there something else you want to...
No. I want to get into this. Yeah.
I'm very curious about that guy, and I hope everybody listened, and that was great. And Pete, I can't wait to see what you're write and everything. Blah, blah. Okay. Let's talk about me now. So my buddy, Chip, right? Mamrie's boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Grace's best friend, Mamrie. They have a podcast. Great podcast. Everybody should listen to it. They don't talk a lot about this stuff.
Kant or Hegel or Heidegger or Husserl? No. Do they do much of that? Marion?
They haven't, I don't think, yet.
Yes. Okay. But
They
that's the
do a
next
lot
episode.
of drag queen
Okay. Yeah.
stuff, which is equally philosophically sound. So Chip introduced me to this type of joint, this marijuana joint, right?
You do drugs?
I said I did a marijuana
Once.
thing.
Did you inhale?
First of all, you're calling it drugs. And I did inhale.
Okay.
I love that question. Did you inhale? It's very funny. Anyway, so I got, I every time I would do these joints, I would be like, this is too much for me. Because I'll smoke marijuana. But I was like, these things were tiny. And I was doing them. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I was like, this is different. And I'm scared of it. Because I feel insane when I do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So then I, of course, go and buy 2 packs of them.
Yeah.
Right? And so I start doing this. And then I start watching this newest thing that our buddy Aaron Van Voorhees turned me on to. It's an episode of Unsolved Mysteries about, I think it's Missouri, maybe? One of the M states. 1996 incident, UFO kind of deal. And so I'm watching it, and I'm high, and I'm like, this is excellent. I'm like, this is exactly what I want right now. And then I was like, all right, if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a fiction book for fun, right? This is not for publishing.
Yeah.
What would I write a book about? And I figured it out.
Okay.
Here's what happened, Pete. There are no aliens. There's no little green men traveling from across the universe. Ever.
Okay. Well, okay.
Never has
Hold
been,
on.
never will be.
Hold the phone. This is what the fuck.
Okay.
Okay.
However, you know how Charles Darwin came up with this idea of natural selection?
I've read about it.
Okay, well, there's a chapter in that story about a fish that flops onto the ground and somehow manages to walk. And I guess
Survive,
now we have art.
Yes.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not making a case for intelligent design. I'm just saying that's kind of funny
Yeah.
that happened that way. Okay,
Oh
here's...
God! If you Freudian say, as soon as you say I'm not making a case, there's no negation in the unconscious, so you are making a case for intelligent design.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Right. Okay, so keep going.
I'm not making a case for intelligent design. I'm making a case that when that fish came on the water, there were 13 other fishes that were like, good luck, dude. The fish who came on land was a drunk fish who was out of his mind, and his girlfriend was out of his mind since they had to reproduce. And that's how evolution happened. Look it up. I'm just telling you facts, man. Do your own research. And the other fish went further down. All right? Chains of evolution happen. This could have happened beforehand as well. It didn't need to happen at the same time. Bottom line, aliens have lived amongst us for the entire time. They're fish people.
Oh.
And the reason that they don't show themselves is because they're scared of us.
So it's an
and why wouldn't they be?
An alternative evolutionary line. That's what the book's going to be.
Yes,
about?
exactly. It's an
wow.
alternative evolution line. It's binary. So we have terrestrial and subterranean, right down into the oceans. And then, of course, you have the octopus people. And, of course, they look like fishes. Of course, they look like octopuses.
So how did they do technology? Did they get opposable thumbs?
Yeah, they got everything, dude. They got multiple opposable thumbs. They got opposable thumbs out their ass. They are so opposable thumb heavy. They don't know what to do with all of their opposable thumbs. And so basically, this is a young adult novel. there's a kid who's like kind of an idiot who figures this out. But no, that's all I got so far. And that's my
This
book.
is very funny. So
And it's literally
this
a funny. It's very funny.
that's very good. It's a really funny idea. It's a very funny idea. It's
Because it pisses everybody off. And also, the whole point is that the aliens are not aliens. They're just a species that we haven't discovered yet. And they live amongst us. And they're terrified of us.
well, they live amongst us, not in the depths of the ocean. They live on land.
I haven't gotten that far yet. What do you
Okay.
think?
Because I'm kind of going like
I like them living amongst us every now and then.
Yeah, but maybe like they develop their technology and they develop their civilization
Aquaman.
deep underwater, and then but they're so sophisticated that yes, they're able to come up and be among us and study us and work us out and try and figure shit out.
I like the study's cool, but I like the idea of them kind of scouting to see if it's okay. Like, I like the idea of them needing to come up, but then also it's like if you entertain this idea, I wanted to come up with the stupidest explanation that explains everything from
But
religious
here-
experiences to alien encounters to the way that UFOs
Or right,
supposedly react.
UFOs look a little bit like fish bowls. I mean, imagine
No, and
UFOs.
they're all transmedium.
Yeah, and they're water. Like maybe UFOs are like they're full of water. They're like little fish bowls of them looking and analyzing us. And we're thinking it's from outer space, but they're actually from the ocean.
Close. The alien suits that they wear are definitely filled with. No, okay. Anyway, so this episode's falling off the rails, and I'm sorry.
No, that's a great idea.
It's very fun. Right?
I did start writing a kind of the similar thing once about a civilization that existed and then completely died off, and then on the same planet Earth, but it was so long ago that there's no kind of experience of it.
But yet you're not into conspiracy theories because that's an actual conspiracy.
Yeah, well,
theory.
then I later learned that is a conspiracy theory.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's
That's-
imaginative and it gets your brain going. Anyway,
Yeah.
something about God, I guess you were saying.
Oh yeah. So
And you're moving, and
God
I'm
is
married.
the signifier
All right.
of the lack. Yes, there you go. And you're moving. I'm married, and there you go.
The truth is, I'm ending this podcast right now because I want to hang out with Pete, and it's
Yeah.
my time. And so, thank you, everybody. But also, for those of you who are patrons, thank you so much. We've paused the previous recent months because we haven't been doing anything.
Yeah.
But if you want to help support the podcast, as we will have to pay for hosting or
And
the
alcohol.
stuff, and the alcohol. So you can go to fundamentalist.com/the Patreon to figure that out.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.